For most of the 20th century, chest congestion was not treated first with syrups, inhalers, or sealed bedrooms. It was treated with air discipline. Households that lived through coal heat, wood stoves, uninsulated walls, and long winters learned quickly that how air behaved overnight determined how lungs felt in the morning. The overnight air rule was simple, deliberate, and followed consistently, and it prevented thick mucus buildup, tight chests, and the lingering cough that modern people now accept as normal during cold months. This was not folklore. It was household respiratory management practiced across Europe, North America, and parts of Asia, especially before central heating and humidifiers became common. The first rule was that sleeping air had to move. Bedrooms were never sealed completely, even in winter. A window was cracked, a transom left open, or an interior door allowed airflow from a cooler hallway. The goal was slow air exchange, not drafts. Stagnant air allowed moisture from breath to accumulate, condense, and thicken overnight mucus. Fresh air kept moisture suspended and prevented it from settling deep in the chest. In practical terms today, this means cracking a window by half an inch or opening a door enough to allow circulation, even when it's cold. You know, modern homes trap air far more aggressively than older homes, which is why congestion is worse now, even though we've got better heating. Cold air itself was not feared. Folks would avoid sudden cold on the face and chest, but steady, cool air was actually considered beneficial. Cool air, it helps reduce inflammation in the upper respiratory tract and slows down excessive mucus production. What people really tried to steer clear of was warm, dry, stagnant air blowing directly onto the sleeper. So, applied today, this means avoiding those forced air vents pointed right at your bed and instead lowering the bedroom temperature just a bit at night instead of overheating the room. Folks found that a cooler room with layered bedding was much better than a warm room with just light covers. Older homes, well, they were dry in winter but not artificially stripped of all their moisture. Water was often kept in the room, sometimes as a basin or a kettle near a heat source, just to keep the air from becoming too harsh. See, overly dry air thickens your mucus and irritates your bronchial passages, which can lead to that morning congestion nobody likes. These days, a modern equivalent is keeping indoor humidity moderate, not too high, and definitely not bone dry. You can do this simply with open water containers or some controlled humidification, rather than running those constant misting machines that just oversaturate the air. Back then, mouth breathing was thought to be pretty dangerous during sleep, especially in the winter time. Cold, dry air hitting the throat could inflame the tissue and leave you with a tight chest by morning. So a lot of families made sure to train their children early on to sleep with their mouths closed. Sometimes they'd use scarves, chin wraps, or even special sleeping positions to help encourage nasal breathing. These days, this old wisdom means we focus on clearing up any nasal obstruction before heading to bed. Folks will clear their nasal passages with warm steam earlier in the evening, steer clear of allergens in the bedroom, and keep the air clean, just to prevent that switch to mouth breathing that can cause congestion overnight. Here's the rule most folks seem to get wrong nowadays. The lungs were meant to be protected, not overheated. Heavy blankets, wool layers, and chest coverings were used to keep the torso warm, while the air around you stayed cool and fresh. The heat was always applied to the body, not to the whole room. A modern application is using layered bedding instead of raising thermostat settings. Keeping the chest warm reduces bronchial constriction while cool air prevents mucus stagnation. Flat sleeping was avoided during congestion-prone seasons. Elevation of the upper torso allowed mucus to drain naturally instead of pooling in the chest overnight. Even slight elevation reduced morning coughing and heaviness. This can be applied today with a raised head of the bed or additional support under the shoulders, not just pillows that bend the neck unnaturally. So, folks made sure to minimize late meals, alcohol, and heavy smoke exposure before heading off to bed, since those things could really ramp up mucus production. And, after being out in the cold air earlier in the evening, they'd warm up gradually instead of jumping straight into a hot bed just to keep from shocking the respiratory system. Even today, avoiding heavy foods close to bedtime and giving your body a little time to settle down before sleep, well, it really helps support that same healthy outcome. The overnight air rule worked, honestly, because it took into account how our lungs act during 8 hours of stillness. Keeping the air moving stopped things from getting stagnant. Cool temperatures helped tone down inflammation. Having moderate humidity kept mucus moving along. And the warmth was aimed at the body itself, not just heating up the whole room. This was not a single trick. It was a system practiced nightly. In a modern house, the same results come from intentional airflow, cooler sleeping temperatures, controlled humidity, layered bedding, and attention to breathing. Crack a window slightly. Turn vents away from the bed. Lower the thermostat. Add body warmth, not room heat. Keep air from becoming lifeless overnight. These steps require no medicine, no supplements, and no technology beyond awareness. For survivalists and historians alike, this matters because respiratory resilience determines endurance. Chest congestion weakens sleep, energy, and immune response. Generations who lived without pharmacies maintained lung health through discipline, not treatment. The overnight air rule is not outdated. It was simply forgotten when homes became sealed boxes and comfort replaced function. If this kind of forgotten household knowledge matters to you, subscribe to Warfield Prepper Chronicles, share this with others who value practical history, and keep these methods alive. This is how real preparedness is built, one night at a time.